original idea for a men's shed came from Australia, where it was initiated by Johnny Voy, who happened to be out in Australia and came across the sheds, and he brought the idea back to Ireland.
I had been down in Australia and I actually visited men's sheds where they originated, and I found it very interesting, the fact that the little communities there, beaver and away, little projects, and nice little environment to be in, you know, good communication between them, and everybody were getting on. Various age groups on the elderly side, to be fair to everybody, you know.
After St. Patrick's Day Parade in 2015, there was a street fair in the town on Railway Street, and I saw a flyer down there for the men's sheds. I went down to it and I found there was a lot of people who were interested in the sheds, so we decided that we'd take it up from there.
And men are very shy about coming forward to put their name down on a piece of paper. In many instances it was their wives or the ladies with them that actually encouraged them to come over and find out and maybe sign up.
I suppose because my wife set me out to join, you know, in the sense that she said, get out there from under my feet. But no, really, I always had an interest in art and crafts and DIY and that sort of thing at home. And having only retired in the last couple of years, that it was going to be an outlet, really.
The first impression was that there was a need. There was a need for it, that a number of guys would come together. Some of them had been encouraged to come along. Others who might have been living alone decided this might be a nice thing to do. They weren't a member of the golf club, they weren't still playing soccer or Gaelic years later. That all that had moved on, so they were maybe without an opportunity for a social place.
I came back from Singapore and I was speaking with a gentleman in the hardware shop in Balbriggan. I told him I was a bit fed up doing nothing, and he suggested that I went down to the shed and that they might be able to give me something. They gave me a little job to do, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it now.
I actually became aware of the men's sheds. It was in 2011. Obviously the country was going through a very difficult recession, and we were quite concerned about the impact on communities. It really connected with me in terms of what people were doing out there in communities in terms of a number of issues, but I think it really at that time in a deep recession.
I enjoyed a very successful career in advertising. Unfortunately, when the recession hit, that the Irish operation was wound down and I found myself redundant in 2013. I found that I had little chance of getting re-employed back in the industry, so I was on the lookout for a job more locally, and I was very, very happy to join the sheds as a member, and I had literally nothing to bring to the sheds except those.
Because it's not a majorly costly piece of infrastructure, although it does take some funding, and I was happy to be able to find funds to support the Balbriggan men's sheds. But in the main, for what it offers, it's actually small change, and we need to look for the champions that can help position themselves in order to encourage the men's sheds project to happen in those areas. Once you have started the forum to bring people together, the world is your oyster.
We weren't homeless, but we were moving around for a while. We were unsettled basically until we happened upon this little building that we have now, and with the good auspices of the Reverend Father and that, we found a home which we put together with some work, and that in itself was a project.
I love the idea of people coming together. I love people sharing their talents together, and I like people to see their whole kind of sharing of their gifts, enriching themselves and making a great contribution to the community itself. So it's really kind of in that lines that I saw it. We had premises here, and it was in a very, very bad way. And I hate to see neglected buildings.
It was an old coach house from the early part of the 20th century, which had been out of use for probably 40 or 50 years. It was semi-derelict, and the parish weren't making any use of it.
We went up there and we saw that there was an awful lot of work to be done. It took us 6 months to clean up the workshop and fit it out into a functioning workshop with power tools.
I was here all during the initial build, yeah, most of the time, and when we started off here, I remember coming in here the first day and sort of thinking, wow, this is going to be some project. But having said that, the group of people that were here and the skills that they had, the amount of knowledge that they had in doing all of this, and I mean, I was overwhelmed by some of it. In fact, In particular, the making of the big doors and the shutters, they were all actually made here on site by men who were retired or whatever and had experience in doing something.
I love the building itself, restored in such a fantastic way. The area where we are at the moment, we couldn't walk here. Now suddenly it's full of life and of all kinds, but laughter. And also the cup of tea, the chat, meeting each other, the warmth of the welcome. And then there are jobs. We have a church here that's 174 years old. There are always things that need to be fixed or looked at or whatever. To have a team of people that are so obliging that you can come to them and say, would you mind? Because I would be no expert in all of these things, but it's great to have somebody who is more than willing to go and have a look at a paint job or a door that needs fixing or whatever it might be.
The shed came about out of a thing called Men's Space when they decided that there was a need in the Swords area to do something for retired and unemployed men. At one of our meetings one day, 2 men arrived in that we hadn't seen or heard of before, and they said, guys, we know you're stuck for space here. We'll provide you with a men's shed, a building for a men's shed. Shedder with me that day said to them immediately, he said, you know, I stopped believing in Santa Claus a long time ago, but it turned out that this Santa Claus was for real. Here we have a workshop of 200 square feet. The building down there, we could have available to us upwards, say, of 17 or 1800 square feet. The responsibility for us will be to raise the money to fit it all out.
Our support for the men's shed fits in well with our plan in terms of we now have a strengthened role to work within communities. So we now have a local economic and community plan. And what the men's sheds does is it fits really well into that action plan because it addresses issues of the economy, purely by the very nature the men are active. It addresses many aspects of the community because they're coming together as a community and they're bringing benefits back to the community.
The big change since we've opened has been around our participation in other community projects. We've engaged in the St. Patrick's Day Parade, and we constructed this fine chair which we submitted into the St. Patrick's Day Festival and won the community award in that festival. There was a great buzz going up the town. There were thousands out on the street and they were looking at these older guys who had done something fantastic.
I had the idea that maybe we could do something that would declare to people passing by who might be, for whatever reason, either unwilling or unable to visit the church, to declare to them, there's something on here.
He actually approached us there in the run up to Easter. Would we make a cross for the outside of the church? A simple wooden cross. Now this cross would be about 10 foot high, and we made a perfect base for it. It was well engineered and it was great to be involved with that, painting it, staining it and everything like that. And we actually finished about 2 hours before the 3 o'clock Mass on Good Friday. And I do believe that after Mass people were coming out, touching the wet paint and blessing themselves.
When you have something in your head is one thing, but to be able to go to a group of people and get them to put that idea in your head into a reality, I think is, again, it's marvellous. And that's what happened.
So about last October, another shedder was contacted by one of the 2 ladies that founded the Andy Morgan Foundation. One of the things they decided to do when they come across it was to promote the idea of buddy benches and what they call the Look Up program in schools. The 2 ladies go into the school and they talk to the children about being worried or about feeling cut out or isolated or to have some other worry. And they're encouraged then to go and sit on the buddy bench which is placed in the playground of the school.
We had a letter in from one of the teachers in St. Teresa's primary school in Balbriggan to ask us would we like to make a buddy bench, and that they had a fundraiser the previous February and they were able to contribute towards the materials. The Balbriggan men's sheds were only too delighted to be involved, and we actually picked out a complex technical design, but it was very fulfilling to see the the whole team get involved, and we completed the project in just under 2 weeks. On the Friday we were down there for school assembly, and we got a rousing reception from all the kids, and it was really lovely to contribute something within our local to one of our local schools. I see people walking up to the sheds. You might see an old neighbour down the back of the workshop, and then the ice is broken already. The great thing about it is we have the kettle on all the time. Anyone can come in, have a cup of tea, stand around for a chat, watch the other men work, and over time they'll be interested in themselves, starting off with simple jobs. I know some people only come over, they'll give the floor a quick sweep, have a cup of tea and they're gone. Other people start simple little projects like helping to sand down bits of wood, maybe even painting with a bit of preservative, and then they take it up from there.
I don't even know how I heard about it. I just wandered in, and there was a lot of work to be done, and usually when I see a lot of work I go the other way, but I thought I'd dig in.
You couldn't drag yourself away.
It's not that I'm handy with my hands, but I was able to do a lot of menial stuff.
Most of the guys here make you feel at home, and there's terrific camaraderie and all, and everyone seems to be terrific, you know, helping out and cooperation, and even problems that you might have at home regarding work and fixing tables or whatever, you learn something new.
I've talked to people at home in California about this. They'd never heard of it.
Gosh.
Yeah, and I thought this is a great concept, you know. And I'm retired, been retired for years, so it'd be something for me to do too.
One man's wife said to me, I'd love for him to come down. I just love for him because it'd be great for him. And he says to me, but sure, I do nothing. So I just said to him, well, do you drink tea? And he said, yeah. Well, so this is the place to come.
I think it's come so popular because it's, I guess, to say a word, it's authentic, it's real. And what it does for me is addresses a lot of the issues that we as local government are very concerned about. So having good, sustainable communities. And as part of that, I think one of the difficulties with mental health, particularly mental health of men, is it's not something that's spoken about.
I think through being unemployed after well over 30 years working in the media industry, that I found that my confidence was slowly draining away, and I was, to be honest with you, I was getting a bit down. It's done me loads of good. I've been appointed administrator there 6 months ago. My wife thinks the sheds is the best thing that ever happened to me.
Some people, there could be loneliness involved with some people. They wouldn't have a little, let's say, an extended family or anybody to go to. You know, we welcome people in. They can have a cup of tea. There's no onus to build anything or make anything. You can build friendships. That's what we're for.